Benji, Brady, welcome in to episode 15, season 2, episode 5. So we're back again for another episode. Glad to see you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Good to be here.
Really cool, man. We're the big 1-5, I guess. Is that a milestone? Maybe it's not a milestone.
It's getting there. We're getting to that point. We're almost to 20. That's a milestone that I keep seeing. Like, how do we get to 20? So that's awesome. We're getting there quick.
Nice.
But hey guys, I'm excited. We've got a good episode for you today. This is a good one because this is one of Brady's topics. Right?
Oh, yeah.
This is something you messaged Benji and I about and said, hey guys, can we cover this? And I was like, yes, we can. So we're going to be talking about abundance mindset. And so take a second, Brady. Like, where, explain maybe what that is, why you feel like this is an important topic to cover for our listeners. Like, where'd this come from?
Yeah. So, I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books, and a lot of people have just been talking through, like, what is having an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. And, we live in a world, in life and business and everything that we do, it is so easy to live out of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of missing out, fear of XYZ, and so how do we come out of that? Because there's a lot of scientific, facts that are out there that, just fear and anxiety and all these things, what it can do even just to not only your mental state, but what it can do to your physical body. And so that I just felt like it was good to talk about. I mean, obviously this is, higher up podcast, how to lead better. But I think it's a good subject just to talk about in our personal walk as well.
Yeah, I kind of look at it, Brady, when I saw the topic, is abundance, scarcity. I love the analogy you just used. A lot of people do live out of fear. I mean, I would bet most people think of that from some point or another. It's just a human nature. But you could almost compare it to glass half full, glass half empty,
Yeah.
Abundance would be the glass half full. Half empty would be the scarcity mindset. So I'm excited to talk about this today and see where it ends up.
Yeah.
Well, and even from a spiritual perspective, and this is like me talking to myself right now, right? But if we are living out of fear, do we really trust that the Lord is going to take care of whatever needs to be taken care of? Or so are we putting him in control, or are we trying to be in control of the situation?
That's
so
good.
It's tough to hear.
Well, I think we, culturally we always want to be in control, whether that's, I think whether that's really, our finances, our family, our jobs, I think sometimes it's very tough to put those things aside. I mean, before you hopped on, Benji and I were just chatting, and that's one of the things I was telling him that I'm personally dealing with, like being in control of things and knowing that I have a lane and that maybe that's the lane that I need to be in and stay that hey, you two tell us all the time, control what you can control. That's something I'm trying to teach my own kids. Like, hey, you can't control these things. You can't deal with these, but you can deal with it, but you can't control it. And so that's something that I'm looking at too right now, because I mean, it stresses me out when I can't make these changes. It frustrates me because I see the potential and what we can be doing versus what we're not doing. And so I feel like a lot of times that's where, I feel like I constantly, I'm talking to myself too. That's where I'm always at.
Yeah. Truly living by faith is what you're both describing. Truly living by faith.
So just to maybe kind of set this up a little bit, you guys know, if you've been listening for any length of time, that we are John Maxwell fans. And, John Maxwell actually, he's got a leadership podcast too. And a few episodes ago, he actually talked about this, but he talks a lot about focus, okay? And what he says is what we focus on really expands. All right, so let's think about this a minute. If we focus on scarcity, what's going to expand? Our scarcity, and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So if we take the opposite approach and we focus on an abundance mindset, then we unlock new possibilities. We unlock new growth opportunities. And really, I think at the core, now, Adam, you're probably more of this than Benji and I are, but at the core of who we are, we're creative beings. So it unlocks a creativity with having an abundance mindset. So it's a shift. It's hard, and I was also kind of thinking of it from a biblical perspective. And, you guys probably know this verse, but Philippians 4:19, it says, and my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus. So again, going back to what do we really trust in? Who do we really trust in? Are we trusting ourselves, or are we trusting in the Lord? So I want to ask you guys a couple questions, this morning. I'm going to kind of flip the script back on you a little bit. But what do you, I guess, first off, let's talk about personal stuff. So what do you guys think, like, how does this live out in our personal life, having an abundancy mindset versus a scarcity mindset?
Hey, I'll say this first, Adam. Brady's getting good at this. He's getting. At first, he was like, "I don't know if I can do this." Yeah, you could do this.
That's right.
You said it. I think the reason we got all these views and listens is not you and I. They're like, "Oh, Brady's on."
So I didn't mean to. Brady, ask your question one more time.
So what is kind of the abundancy mindset versus the scarcity? Let's talk about our personal life first.
From personal
perspective. How do you guys think it lives out in our personal walk, and then we'll talk about business.
Yeah, I mean, from a personal perspective, like I said earlier, I think we're all guilty at some point of we say it all the time, live in faith, live with faith, have faith. But then it comes down, you get those challenges in life and you go, now I got to really practice what I preach. So that's where the scarcity mindset comes in. So from a personal perspective, I think that could it be in your financial situation, right? I mean, you see the bank account start coming down and you go, okay, paycheck's coming Friday. What am I going to do? Whether you own a business, whether you're an employee, it doesn't matter, right? We all have the same mentality, especially a business owner. I mean, think about this. Checking account's getting the black's coming down. I don't want to get in the red. When's is that check for that job coming in, or is that check for that service that I provided coming in? So that's where the scarcity mindset comes in. The abundance mindset comes in. That, I mean, we all have that. You have an influx in your business, and maybe in your personal life, you have an influx of income come in. And what do we all do? First thing we think about, most people. Let's go spend the money, right? I got to have that. I got to do this. I got to do that. So I think it can go both ways. We all have those mountains and valleys in life, and that's just my perspective. Adam, what do you think?
I don't know if we have enough time in the episode to divulge into this. For me, this is a big one because, man, I feel like I live in that scarcity, especially. Recently, we talked about in the first episode of the season, I changed positions. That was one of the biggest things for me that was hard because I'm like, there's a lot of comfort and there was a lot of, I felt like I had a purpose. Not that I don't where I was, but being at Serpro and being on Team Wilson, like I felt like everything was in line. Like I felt good. I felt like I had stability, but I still didn't feel like I was doing what God had called me to do, and I felt like there needed to be a change. But I knew one of the things that I talked with Emily before we decided to do it. I was like, babe, do I have the capacity to be creative full time? Like I've been able to do it at Serpro, but then I've also was handling, office work. I was handling management, managing teams. I was, doing things from a desk that need to be done, analyzing data, mining data. Like these are things that sometimes you don't have to be creative of. You're looking for these things. And so I feel like even now with the position I'm in at the church, like I constantly live in a scarcity mindset. And I know that's something that needs to change for me because I feel like I constantly am like, I have imposter syndrome. I've always had imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? I think social media plays a big factor into that. I think I have a terrible habit of doom scrolling because there's a twofold. I use social media as a way to give me ideas on how I could do something similar, whether it's personally, for a client, for the church. So I look at all these things and I constantly am like, I'm not that great. Like I see that, and I always feel awkward because people compliment me a lot, and I always jokingly say it feels like Talladega Nights, where it's like he's being interviewed and he keeps putting his hands up, and I don't know what to say. Like when people compliment me, but I feel like for me that's where I've got to get out of that. I've got to get into that mindset of abundancy to say, all right, I have the ability to do this. God, you've given me this ability. This is where you're talking about having faith in Him. Faith, not just with my business, but personally. I've got to remember that this position that I'm in, it wasn't a happenstance. You know, He put me in a relationship with the two of you that allowed me to grow and be creative because the two of you allowed that. I had the relationship with the pastors at the church I'm at now that allowed them to see, hey, we feel like there's a need on our team that you could fill. And so even in those moments, I feel like I've got to find a way to get out, because I'm in that scarcity mindset right now. I know I'm not in that abundance mindset. And you're talking about being personal. This is very real. Like I feel like every day, even right now, we're working on like Christmas stuff. And I'm like, I told them the other day, I was like, guys, like I got to get this right. Like I don't want them to say, guys, we screwed up this hire. Like, this guy can't even do our first big Christmas project. And so, but yes, I think that's important, because when I'm sitting in that, I feel like it hinders me. Like I feel like I'm stuck, because I've got to find a way.
You know what's interesting about that, Adam? I didn't even think about this until just now, but you kind of mentioned in there, I wonder, like how often do we actually look backwards? Okay, so we're constantly looking forwards, which it's good, but how are we reflecting on the past and using it to see how we need to go forward? So a lot of times, in our organization, we use the analogy of, the windshield versus the rearview mirror. Okay, so the rearview mirror, the windshield, there's a reason why it's bigger than the rearview mirror, is because that's where we need to be looking, right? But occasionally, you need to look in the rearview mirror so you can see where you came from, what obstacles that you were able to overcome. And so I think in this particular instance, when we kind of get in that scarcity mindset, is from a personal perspective, look back and see where you start reflecting on, hey, the Lord worked in that scenario. The Lord worked in that relationship. The Lord worked in that situation. I didn't know how He was going to do it. I remember how scared I was. I remember, I can remember specific things in my life, that I was really fearful and really scared. I didn't know how it was going to work out, and God just worked it out. Mm-hmm. So how often do we actually look backwards and reflect on that?
Looking backwards too, Brady, in the rearview mirror, I mean, it also could be a perspective that you're keeping your eye, which by the way, keep your eyes on the road. Let's be honest.
Absolutely. It's just it's a glance,
Yeah, but if you do look in the rearview mirror, sometimes I think from a scarcity mindset, we're afraid that someone's going to pass us. Whatever that may be, right? You're driving down the road, and I know I'm using the word scared someone's going to pass us, but think about it. I mean, you see that person, you're always keeping your eyes on your head on a swivel, looking out the windshield, keeping back what's behind you, because as you drive, you got to be defensive, right? Yeah. And I think the abundance mindset keeps us moving forward, while in the same time keeping perspective on what's behind us, so that we can keep our focus moving in the right direction.
It's so funny that you put it that way, Brady, because I just had a conversation with a buddy like 2 days ago, and we were talking about something, and I was like, man, my pictures have not been anywhere near as good as they used to be. Like I have trouble, it's just a different setup. It's a whole different church. It's a different setup, and I was like, man, I'm not where I should be. And it's just funny because the individual mentioned the exact same thing. He was like, dude, think about what you did before and think about those things that you did and how you made it work. Like how through all the trials and tribulations and, issues with people and lighting and this. And he was like, but you made it work and you grew what we had. He was like, you're in a new situation. Look, you're not going to walk in and knock it out of the park. Like, you got to figure it out. And so he was like, that's something just to always be mindful. Is you mentioned that, and that's exactly what he said the other day. He's like, go back and look at the pictures you took when you first started and look at where they are now. And
Yeah,
so,
and you got other people. You got other people looking at him, going, "I want to be that guy. I want to do what he's doing."
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I laugh because, man, I'm in a coaching course with some guys. I'm in this course with, it's called Happy Creative, and man, like, there's some guys in there that I feel like are legit, and I'm like, what am I doing sitting here with these fellas? Like, they are phenomenal. But yeah,
Gotta
it's just
start somewhere.
you do, and man, remember some of the videos we did when we first started? How bad they were. I found the very first video we ever filmed the other day, Benji. I was looking for something. And it was some video we filmed because there was a massive rainstorm. We had that ridiculous closet that we put up a big green
Oh,
cloth
wow.
because you're a green screen person, and
Oh yeah.
you had a lot more
I
hair than you
remember
do
this.
now. And so, and we sent it to all the agents. We were like, "Hey, we're here, we're ready." And I was like, "Yo, this looks terrible."
Hey, it was good for back then. It was good for back then.
You might have the TV picture there with the little video.
That's what it
playing.
was.
Oh man, I remember that.
We were so excited.
So, how do you understand what even the scarcity mindset is? Like, what does that mean to someone?
I think it's just a basic understanding of you're living in fear. You're living in fear of what's to come, or the element of the unknown. I think I see that in a lot of people. Mm-hmm. We don't know how this thing is going to work out. We don't know if we're going to be able to do that, And even just recently, the other day, I was having a conversation with, and I want to get into the business aspect of it, but I was having a conversation with one of our teammates, one of our leaders. He's like, "Well, we gotta solve for this. What about 10 years, 15 years?" And I said, "Well, I mean, it's good to look, through the lens of that.
Yeah.
But we got issues that we need to solve like right now.
So in the moment,
we need to solve. Why don't we do this? Like, why don't we focus on solving for today, and then we can plan for tomorrow. We don't necessarily have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen, but we know that there's issues that need to be done and prepared for right now. Let's do that. So, one thing I want to kind of shift gears a little bit is more of the abundance versus scarcity mindset. If you guys are listening to this and you're a leader, that means you're leading teams. I'm sure Adam will be able to speak to this, because he was a part of our leadership team. But how do we see playing out within a team of people? And it's very tough because, and I wrote a couple of things down. We've talked about it a lot, and I don't know that we have fully figured this out yet, but having a level of trust amongst your leadership team, because if there's a scarcity mindset, then you are just not going to trust people the way that you should. And really, trust is the foundation of everything in the business world as far as your leadership team or the people that you're leading every day. So maybe speak to that a little bit. I mean, what do you – I know you got some thoughts on that,
I'm laughing
Adam.
because I feel like Brady was listening even though he wasn't on the call when you and I were talking before the call started, Benji. Because
I actually was just thinking about that.
We were covering this. I'll start on this one. I was telling him I think trust is a big thing. And I was sharing with Benji that's one of the things I'm trying to work through now in my position is trying to make sure that people on the team trust me because I feel like I'm one of the only ones that doesn't have tenure. And not in a negative way, but like a lot of these people that are part of our team at the church have been there. Like they've put in the serve hours, right? They put in being there at all the events and doing all these things before being on staff. And so they've done all these things. So I feel like sometimes I don't want to say feel like I'm an outsider. I want to be very careful because I want to honor the time that they've put in, but I need to earn their trust. And it's like, there's things that I want to go ahead and do now and push the ball down the court. But I need to realize that I need to take a moment and slow down before I do that. And a lot of that, honestly, I told Benji, is out of fear. Like I don't want to have conflict. Like I don't want to walk in and say, "Hey, we really need to be doing this." And honestly, out of fear that I'm going to make someone upset. And so, but because of that, I feel like it's keeping me from having that abundancy to kind of fix those things. I'm not taking a risk, right? Like I'm not embracing a risk to say, hey, you could have the conversation. It can go left or it can go right. but I need to just take the risk and have that conversation, or maybe this change will never occur.
Yeah. It's I love the trust analogy because, we talked about that at our strategic planning, back December of 2023, or whatever it was.
Yep.
And that was the foundation of how are we going to take our company to the next level. We have to build trust with each other. Inside Brady and I mean, obviously we've been brothers since forever ago. But the 20 years, I mean, 20 years ago, I mean, you
He
think
said
about
forever ago. I'm sorry.
forever ago. I mean,
It feels like forever.
I'm only 45 today, so it's okay. But 20 years ago when we got into business, we were just trying to figure out what the business was about, and then we got put into leadership roles to help take it to the next level. Brady and I had to trust each other on the marketing side and the operations side that we were going to both do our role well. And there was some battles early in the game. Today we look back and we go, man, how dumb was that? Because the scarcity mindset, looking in the rearview mirror, goes, what could we have done if we had have worked with each other, 20 years ago? Where could we be today? Today it's like, man, it's like we're not oil and water. We're like water and water together, moving in the same direction to help our team get where we want to go. And that's the trust factor that you have, even in family businesses. For those listening, you have to trust your business partner, especially if they're family, because you don't want to take that stuff to the Thanksgiving, dinner. It doesn't work.
Well, even for our listeners, that may be also, whether they're business owners or especially those that, are also in the ServPro industry. I mean, even our team that's very successful and the things we've done aren't without that. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like on the outside, you're like, oh, they got it all together. They do, they're great. They're top 10. They're doing this. It's not. And that's one of the things that we dealt with this year that even you, Brady, had to kind of coach and walk through that. Like we admitted that we didn't have trust in each other, and we thought it was there. Like we always thought, but until it was verbalized, and we actually, again, you're talking about embracing. If we're going to embrace the change, take the risk. Like you told us in some of those meetings, like, all right, you guys, like say the thing, like say the thing. Don't take offense to it. Say the thing, and let's deal with it. But I think that trust, like we need, because there were conversations that we need to have. Like, hey, I don't feel like you're doing this, or hey. I feel like you see me in this light, but really I'm doing this. And, I even take that with myself. Like, even with our director of business development, he and I worked a lot on our relationship this past year because we're operating on two different sides of the marketing spectrum, but they have to work together. So if he and I didn't have that trust, like, hey, your team's doing this. And I know I didn't really have a team. Like I was handling the digital side. But he was like, I need you to trust what I'm doing, and I need to trust what you and your team are doing, because without the marketing, like, we don't have jobs coming in. Like we can't just depend on it to happen and they find us. So I love what you talked about that, because I don't want people to think, well, they got it all together. It's there's things that every team deals with that they've got to do to get past that.
Well, and here's one of the biggest things that I see, not only in our team, but I've seen it because I've been a part of other organizations, nonprofits, churches, whatever. In every organization, the thing that feeds the scarcity mindset the most is politics.
Oh, yeah.
And politics, I mean, like Adam, if the team doesn't say it in the meeting, and we're not trying to hurt feelings, we're learning how to have good conflict. But if you don't say it in the meeting, as soon as the meeting's done, somebody's walking into somebody else's office and saying, hey, can you believe that Adam West? He just whatever. And that just starts to feed that scarcity mindset. Yeah. And so,
lobbying
I think
position.
Yeah, it can be a cancer. It can be a real cancer. But
well, one of the things that when you're talking about that, one of the great things that we have been going through with that, and it was brought up to me. We were talking about that same thing, like, having these things that we handle, and, is this person doing that? Is this person doing this? And one of the ways, and it may be different, maybe you can kind of speak to this, Brady, but I know it may be different in the church world compared to, like the corporate world. But one of the things that when we brought up, like having that fear, like, well, I know this person handles that, and one of our pastors was like, Adam, no one person on our team owns one thing. Yes, you may, Adam, you're over social media. You're handling our digital marketing. You're handling things like our website. You're handling our PR, our branding, our forward facing. But that doesn't mean that other people on our team can't assist with that. Like at the end of the day, our mission is to bring people to Jesus. And like I said, that's where the difference between church and corporate. But that was one of the things that one of the pastors said to me, like, hey, say the thing. Let's figure out how we can work as a team so we can get the ball down the court. But realize not every, like, you may work, like, for instance, you may work in production, but how can I help you? Like, how, like, from a digital standpoint, how can me listening to calls help you understand what your like your priority responders, how they're answering phones, how they're doing this? Work together as a team and realize that you may be over it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you own all of it. We own the company as a whole, and we have that ownership to be able to make that company succeed.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that's really good. I think that, so we've talked about a lot today. So what I figured we could do is like give some practical steps.
Yeah.
How do we?
That'd be great.
So how do we move out of that? And this is not going to be an all-inclusive list, just some of the things and you're kind of peeking into the world of Benji and Brady and our organization and how it looks. But from that aspect of the leadership team and building trust, one of the things that we've recently done, I don't know if you guys are familiar with EOS, but it's the Entrepreneurial Operating System. But they have this workflow called the IDS. So when there's an issue, whether it's a challenge that comes up, then what you do is you identify the issue, D, you discuss the issue, and S, you solve the issue. And what we want to do is we want to get to solving these issues as a leadership team with that trust. Now, one of the things that can be involved in that is, discussing. Like you can over discuss, right? And I remember our dad saying many, many, many times, he's like, look, there's an old Chinese proverb that says when the horse is dead, you dismount.
Okay? I've heard y'all say that so many times.
And so there's several times we have to dismount. But what we've done recently with our leadership team is we've added one S in there, okay? So, Adam, when you go back to ownership, so the leader, what we've done is we've said, okay, these different aspects of the business, there are people that own that aspect of the business. But what we want to do is we want to give the leadership team the ability to speak into that solve or what the solution is. So we still identify, we still discuss, and the extra S that we added in was the leadership team to give their suggestions, okay? And so what they'll do is they will get to collaborate on, hey, here's what we think. So they get their voices heard. They feel ownership in the process. And then whoever the owner is of that particular area of the business, then it's their responsibility not only to go out and solve it, but once it has been solved, now it's their responsibility to go implement and execute that, and then it's on them. So I think that's one practical way, just what we've done, and also this is a tough one for some people, but sometimes in meetings we have to learn to control our emotions.
I feel like I 100%
listen. I was not looking at you. I promise.
For our listeners watching on YouTube, you're staring at me because this is my weakness. 100% my weakness.
Y'all got to go check YouTube out. I will say this, that Brady, that's a great point, because a lot of times I think that leadership teams, especially the owner of a business, get scared, no pun intended, to do a leadership team meeting because they're concerned about what everybody else is going to say, how they're going to react. And the truth of the matter is, if you set boundaries around, look, this is not pointing any specific person or teammate out. What this is designed to do is to work together. We're going to give you a platform to be able to collaborate together. Everyone gets a stake in the game. And then someone, usually the owner of the company, gets the final say that, okay, we've heard you, we've listened, we've observed, we've watched, you've given us your feedback. Now it's on me, my onus, Brady and I, to say, we're going to do it this way. And when we do that, we have to always make sure when we walk out that door, we're all moving in the same direction. I think that's a lot of times why, honestly, leaders, managers, owners don't do team meetings. Now, the problem with not doing team meetings is, I don't guess it's really a problem, but sometimes we make them last longer than they should. Let's get to the point. Let's work through the situation. So that's a great point you brought up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to say, I agree. That's something that I've always have to keep at the forefront of my mind, because I am an emotional person. We've had many discussions about this.
What?
I mean, I know it's shocking. My wife's probably listening in the car when she listens to this, and will be laughing. So, because I am an emotional person. Even, and it's not just with business. It's with my kids. It's with anything. But you're just talking about being on that same page and reminding yourself, hey, we're all on the same path.
Yep.
It's okay to think differently. It's okay to disagree. It's okay. Nothing.
That's so good.
Nothing
So
happens, right? Like, you should not be offended because someone disagrees with you. Like, at the end of the day, honestly, nothing happens when you're offended. It's a personal feeling.
Yep.
And so that's something scarcity mindset, because you're afraid of I feel like you're afraid of the situation because somebody thinks differently than you. But I love that you're saying that, because I honestly, as I think about it now, even in this moment, like, scarcity, have emotional responses is a scarcity mindset.
It is, because
I emotionally responding to things because I'm probably in fear of how am I supposed to feel this way? Should I change the way I feel? So I think that's something you're just talking about, practical steps. I think sometimes it's just being self-aware is a great practical step. Being self-aware. If you need to write it down on something, if you need to put it on take your family off your cover of your phone, put something like that. So when you stare at it, or put it on your computer, whatever,
constant reminder.
Put it somewhere where you see it. So I thought that was great. That was really good.
So just as we kind of wrap up today, I'll give a few just rapid fire, and we've already talked about this, but going back to the beginning, what John Maxwell said was, he said the remedy for this is focus. So what should we be focused on? So I'll just go real quick. We talked about focus on controlling our emotions. We talked about that. Focus on building unity with your team instead of engaging in gossip and slander. And we don't have time to unpack that today.
Nope.
But I'll just leave that one out there as a little softball for you guys to research later. Focus on trying not to be so political. There's politics everywhere in business and life and relationships, so that's what not to focus on. What to focus on is focus on appreciating people. That's a big thing when you say something good, and that's something I'm not the greatest at, is encouraging people. I'm trying to learn that. Focus on seeing opportunities. We talked about seeing the opportunity instead of the fear of what's out there, and then try to focus on overcoming the fear of the future, because we don't know what the future holds. Yeah. But if we really trust God and what He has in store for us, then that's all we need. And the last but not least, I think this is just huge and a great way to end this. But how much are we actually giving? And I'm not talking about money or time, but just our attention. Last episode we talked about listening. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should listen twice as much as we speak. But how much are we giving? The more we pour into other people, and that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, the more we give, it is kind of it seems like a selfish thing, but you do feel better. You are giving back. But what it does is it takes the focus off of you onto somebody else, and that is having a higher up mindset.
Yeah. I'll say this, Brady, to wrap. We talk about this. We have a fear of what the future holds, but if we have the abundance mindset, we know who holds the future. And that honestly is what we have to focus on. We want to encourage you listeners, have an abundance mindset. Utilize your team to go out and make decisions to help you take your company to the next level. Yep. And if you do that, listen well. Honestly, Brady and I have had to learn this over the last couple of years. So we're not telling you anything we haven't done ourselves,
Yeah.
So just know, listen to your team. Doesn't mean that you're going to agree with everything your team does. And ultimately you have the final, say so. as the owner or leader of that department, company, whatever. But we just want to encourage you, have an abundance mindset. And at the end of the day, anything that you do, however you do it, you can honestly choose to go live a higher up life. Thank you guys for listening in. Don't forget to connect on all our social platforms. Appreciate all of you guys listening.